Welcome to our community healing vigil. We are gathered here today to share in our grief together following the events that happened 2 weeks ago today at Wilmington Hospital. Our journey tonight is to walk together a few steps in that long path of healing, to take deep breaths, to share in our mourning, to name our fears and speak our hopes, and to recognize that we go further when we go together. My name is David Chen, and I am a physician. I'm a hospitalist, which means I take care of patients sick enough to be hospitalized. My life literally revolves around the hospital, and I will tell you that the hospital is a community in every sense of the word. It is where we work, sometimes even where we sleep, where our colleagues and friends are, where we spend many, many hours of our lives. Personally, it is a place that has influenced my identity. Through many conversations and journeys with patients and coworkers, I see how people experience and process the most meaningful aspects of life: joy, sorrow, pain, suffering, death, and purpose. I see the ways in which illness challenges and transforms us, and am compelled, sometimes forced, to constantly reassess how it is that I, as a person, will respond to the same. Some of this has been through the experience of violence here in the city of Wilmington. During my year's training as a resident, I lived on the north side by 23rd and Pine, and both fell in love with the city and also feared it, experiencing firsthand the kindness and affection of neighbors as well as the terror of gunshots fired, not for sport or recreation, but in anger, with the intent to injure and kill. I came to know that the open doors of neighbors and friends meant to stop by, and also that hearing helicopters circling overhead meant that there could be trouble and to stay inside. One day I was outside the home and heard gunshots close by. I watched people run past in fear and found myself hiding behind my car, eyeing the back door to the house, deciding whether to run or stay hiding. On a different day, I was inside the home and heard gunshots close by. I ran out the door to find a young man bleeding from multiple wounds. I tried to stop the bleed. I watched the ambulance take him away, and I still remember the shaking of my hands, the tightness in my chest, and that strange jitter that only happens when you exhale after having held your breath for too long. 2 weeks ago, I was not in the hospital. I was in an office building at a research desk where I study how to prevent and treat gun violence. That afternoon, I was starting to type out an email to the police department, thanking them for a recent presentation on gun violence data in our city, in which they said both gun violence is on its way to an 8-year low, and also even a single victim is too many. I never got to send the email because at 3:52, I was distracted by the first of many texts. Wilmington Hospital ER shut down with massive police response. Are you okay? Just checking in. I have no words other than I'm thinking of you. I began packing my things, and as I was walking down the hallway, I saw a friendly and smiling face that asked, "How are you?" And my heart sank as I realized that, one, this colleague, whom I knew had devoted so much love and life to Wilmington Hospital, didn't yet know what was going on. And two, I was going to be the one to tell him the bad news. I will never forget the disbelief and horror that overcame him and the return of that tightness and deadness inside of me. On June 16th, an employee shot 2 other young men at Wilmington Hospital and then left. 1 victim died and 1 survived. Patients and staff were under lockdown in the hospital for hours, and the shooter was arrested in Philadelphia later that night. This description is a brief one, and in this country, we read a variation of this headline on a chaotic and frequent basis. Everyone here this evening is present because they carry some of that heaviness, that constriction in your chest that says, how can this be? How can a coworker turn from a support into a source of harm? How can a home become so hostile? How can we be so together and yet feel so alone? I stopped by the hospital a few days after the event on my day off because I knew it would be hard. I also knew that avoiding it would make it harder. On the surface, very little had changed. The same doors opened. The same people were doing the same work. And yet, it was as if the air itself was different, as though the building itself was still holding its breath. I remember thinking that this was not the first time Wilmington Hospital felt that way. At the onset of the COVID pandemic, it felt so strange to walk into the same physical building while also becoming hyper-aware of the air itself, conscious of every breath. There were so many things, pervasive and ordinary, that still bring on that chest tightness, that racing heartbeat, that clouds my mind's eye with a veil of blinding dread. Sometimes the trigger is obvious and I know exactly why it is happening. But sometimes it seizes me unexpectedly and leaves me gripping the kitchen countertop, staring at the water streaming from the faucet and wondering why I cannot move, cannot breathe, cannot finish washing those dishes, cannot finish writing these words. Even so, we showed up for work. We showed up because we wanted to and because we had to. We showed up because our patients were here and because the hospital does not close. We showed up because someone had to answer the page, pronounce the death, call the family, write the note, change tubing, hold the hand, stand in the room, and bear witness. We showed up when there were shortages, exhaustion, anger, mistrust, denial, and death. And we showed up on those days when the hospital felt less like a place of healing and more like where the grief and anger and the problems of the world had been brought indoors and given to us to absorb. That is what healthcare workers do. We show up. We take things in. We take on the pain and fear and hurt and anger and the grief of families and the suffering of strangers. We take it in like the air we breathe. But what do we do when air becomes trapped? What do we do when the breaths stack more and more, shift after shift, year after year, crisis after crisis, without a place to let it all out? That is part of why this shooting hurts in the way that it does. A hospital is not just a building. It is not just a collection of rooms and beds and monitors and hallways. It is a community of people with familiar habits and voices and stories. Who drinks what coffee? Who is always late? Who always stays late? Who can be trusted in a crisis? Who will make you laugh? So when violence enters that space, it injures not only our bodies, but our memory as well. It shatters the familiar and substitutes it with the strange. As I wound my way through the hospital that day, I heard new stories. I will share a few of them now because I promised to bear witness on their behalf. Some of these are accounts of persons who wanted to share them, but are still reliving their trauma, are afraid of saying something they shouldn't, and still struggling to find their voice. These are not graphic accounts, but they are still hard to describe. They are physicians who were locked down in clinic, huddled with residents and students, patients stowed in the bathrooms for their protection so that they could at least access water and toilets. They were staff across the hospital who, like me, first found out about the shooting from a frantic text or a social media post or by just looking out the window and seeing a swarm of police. They are a mother getting a phone call from their child to say, "I love you," because they had heard about the shooting, a twisted reversal of the story of our uniquely American sickness. They are the staff, huddled in corners, hearing someone rattle door handles and barging in through doors, and the mixed terror and relief of seeing SWAT and not the shooter. They are the nurses who saw the faces of the wounded and the dead, and see them still when their eyes are closed, who were invited but could not bear to walk through the doors of the funeral. They are the staff who already felt the tendrils of violence in the streets and in the home, who were used to coming to the hospital as a safe place, who now grieve the feelings of the loss of that sanctuary as well. They are us who see gun detectors, those doors and corners, those hands in pockets in new ways. And some spoke even of shame in naming those feelings, shame that we were afraid, that we could not protect someone else, and that we could not protect ourselves, that we were not there or that we were there and survived, that we felt anger or that we felt numb, that all we wanted to do was to go home or to come and help when we could not help, that some part of us still wonders whether the next person we are trying to help might instead become the person who harms us. But shame lies. Grief is not failure. Fear is not cowardice. These feelings are not a lack of compassion, but the work of the body telling the truth that something has threatened and taken what we love. And what we love is not abstract. We love this work even when we are tired of it. We love our coworkers even when we do not say it. We love the city even when we are afraid of what happens in it. We love our patients even when the work is hard, even when the circumstances seem unfair, even when the suffering is too much. As I heard a pastor once say, we are not necessarily called to like each other, but we are called to love one another. And so I'm reminded of another act of love and solidarity. I remember in 2020, gathering with physicians, nurses, environmental staff, and persons from every part of the hospital in the old parking lot by the old annex and taking a knee. I remember us thinking of those words, I can't breathe. Those words have followed us. They are the words of those who are held down, unseen, unheard, and breathless. Many of us remember standing and kneeling in the parking lot outside the hospital, along with much of the city, to say that we saw it, that we heard it, that we would not pretend not to know. We showed up for the city because breath had become witness, had become a way of saying that no one should die from violence and that we each have the right to breathe. And so now, after gun violence in our hospital, we hear another kind of breathlessness, that tightness in the chest that comes from shock, from grief, from walking through the same hallways and feeling the panic rise from the sorrow of losing one of our own. The breathlessness of feeling trapped, of feeling alone, of having inhaled so much of the suffering of our city and needing the moment to let that breath go. So tonight, we begin here with breathing, because breath is the first movement of the Spirit. It is the sign that the airway is open and that the pulse remains. It is the rhythm of taking in and letting go. And that is what we are here to remember how to do. We have taken in what happened. We do not deny it. We have taken in the grief. We do not rush past it. We have taken in the fear. We do not call it weakness. We have taken in the anger. We do not pretend it is not there. But then together, we give ourselves the permission to let things release. We begin to release these things in tears, in silence, in prayer, in memory, in words. And we do not pretend that one breath in and one breath out is ever enough. We remind ourselves to keep breathing, to seek out ways to loosen that tightness in our chest, to calm the pulse that is racing, to shield the suffering, to shine lights on that which should not be hidden, and to carry together that which should never be borne alone. No one here is required to feel a certain thing tonight. Some of us need words, some need quiet, some need prayer, some need to leave early, some need to cry, and some cannot cry yet. Some feel anger at what was done or not done. Some may feel nothing at all and wonder what that means. All of that belongs here. Grief is not graded on a curve, nor is it a test of strength or demand that anyone be resilient on command. This place is, first of all, a place to breathe. So before we continue, I invite us simply to breathe. In our moments of silence, to simply breathe in and let go, to take in only what you can and let out only what you are able. And let this gathering be a beginning of loosening what has been trapped, of giving voice to what has been held in silence, and of giving breath back to one another. We're going to continue proceeding through our program, and we have a number of guests and speakers here. This first segment is to honor those on staff at the hospital, the healthcare workers, and I invite Dr. Brian Hames to share a reflection written by a nurse, by someone else.